Hello, I'm student Dr. Coretta. If this is your first time watching my videos, welcome. I'm a first year medical student, non traditional, and I'm here to just talk about the journey that is medical school, giving you a full frontal exposure of the things that I experience, the things that I'm encountering, and some of my thoughts. This is my first video of the new year, and it seems kind of late because January is almost over, but the ball has been moving. I've been so busy. We just finished a block. I'm trying to recollect my thoughts, but we just finished the endocrine reproductive block. And it was a lot. It was a lot of information. Very interesting, very applicable. It's probably the first time since the GI block that it's really been clinically related. Like the bulk of the material is relevant to medicine. It's not just biochemistry or receptors or physiological processes. It's actual medicine. So that was exciting. And it was a lot, but I wanted to talk a little bit about my transition in my studying habits. I kind of touched on it last year about the things that I wanted to implement and try to change with my studying. And I just wanted to talk about the things that I have done. So the thing about medical school is you have to be so adaptable. So things that may have worked for you in the past may not work as far as like studying habits, may not work for you for a certain block that's super heavy with physiology and processes versus another block that's very heavy in memorization. Sorry, been a long day. Memorization that requires you to just know certain facts and know them at an instant. Like you need to be able to recognize that fact. So I found that endocrine reproductive block, in the endocrine portion was a lot of processes, knowing how things work, the different axes that exist in our body, and the reproductive side was a lot of facts about embryology, facts about the female anatomy, facts about male anatomy, and we hadn't done a huge amount of anatomy in months. The bulk of our anatomy was in musculoskeletal system, so I kind of forgot how to study for that, if I'm being honest. Like having to know the different muscles of the pelvic floor and what nerve and artery supplied them, and some of them had anastomoses that got blood supply from multiple things. So I'm going too deep into science, but a lot of facts in reproduction, and it surprised me, and I think I did well. So we got our grades. In hindsight, I did well. I passed the course. I thought I would have done better, but one thing that I'm learning about studying in medical school, yes, strategy is important, but also endurance is huge. And towards the end of my studies, because our week was so densely packed with not just material that we had to learn, like going through PowerPoints, but also just different professionalism things. We had a 4-hour ethics class one day. What else did we have? We had so many just extra things in our schedule that kind of take away from study time. So study time has to be so efficient. And I ran out of gas. Oh my gosh. I am an introvert. So not only does the bulk of the material sometimes drain me, but just the fact that we had to do so many other things where we were interacting with people, having to be prepared for those things, reading articles for those supplemental things outside of the actual clinical courses, it drained me. Oh my gosh. We had tons of group work. There were a lot of factors going on, but we survived it. Hallelujah. We survived it. And the study strategies that I implemented specifically for this exam, but I also started it last year for our very last block of the fall semester, which was GI renal. A couple of things that I did that I just want to run them off because I feel like I've been rambling, but for me, previewing PowerPoint slides, number one, is paramount. Just getting familiar with the terms, especially if it's a subject that I'm not too familiar with. So for this exam, embryology was something that I wasn't really familiar with, and all that is just learning about what happens between fertilization, when an egg and a sperm meet, all the way up until a baby is born. That encompasses embryology. So I had to preview that lecture, and even when it was time to review lectures to prepare for the exam, I spent extra time with that particular lecture because I just was the least familiar with it. So previewing is huge. Going through the material multiple times, which has been a huge challenge for me, just because figuring out timing is really challenging, especially with other things going on. But taking the time to go through the complete PowerPoint 2 or 3 times, if possible. It doesn't always happen, but that's something that I've been implementing or trying to implement. Condensing my notes. So I really thrive with outlines. Outlines, sometimes I'll include pictures, sometimes I'll include definitions, but for my brain, it helps me learn how processes occur in a stepwise manner. So outlines really help me with that. And instead of just retyping notes or rewriting notes, if I'm able to organize the information in an outline, I'm able to catalog that information in my head and be able to regurgitate that information on an exam better because it's categorized in my head. And that may not work for you, but for me, it's been super paramount to me really performing better on the written exams. And then lastly, practice questions. Now, I'm a big proponent for death to Anki. Anki does not work for me. Going through, and I kind of talked about it in an Instagram post, but it's like pulling teeth for me, just going through hundreds of Anki cards, which it works for some people, it doesn't work for me. But I will say I have implemented flashcards, and I actually found this what is it? Is it a data? It's an, I don't know if it's an app. I downloaded it. Basically, it's called RemNote, and it's this brainchild of 2 medical student brothers. I'll put the information in the description box if you're interested, but it's essentially, in my mind, it's like OneNote, if you use OneNote, where it has different tabs and a way for you to organize your information, and Anki put together to where I can put information in an outline and create and generate flashcards from that information. That's been really helpful for me. Like I said, I'll include it if you're interested. I'm still trying to figure out how it works for me in my studying, but I think it was really beneficial because I was able to understand the material better. And when it was time for me, to review, I could just run through a couple of practice questions, and it did help. One thing about my university is the faculty does a really good job of providing students with practice questions. There's a lot of test banks and question banks available, but they will provide us questions, and sometimes if they don't, we take quizzes before we get to the exams, and the quizzes are typically a really good indicator of whether or not you really grasp a concept. It'll be helpful for finding those loops in those holes in your understanding rather. So I've started implementing practice questions much earlier, and not holding them off until the weekend before an exam, which is what I would do in the past. And it would overwhelm me because I would realize, oh my gosh, I don't really know that much stuff. When in reality, I knew a lot of things. I just didn't know what was pertinent for examinations. So those are the things that I've been implementing, and slowly but surely, they are proving themselves to be effective for me in this point in time. So we're ending when the spring semester ends, we'll be done with the first pass for most of our courses. And what I mean by the first pass is that's the first time we've seen that material. I think at the end of this semester, we'll begin the second pass. So we'll start again with musculoskeletal 2. So now that I kind of got my footing and I got a plan, I'm hopeful that I'll start to see the improvement that I really desire when it comes to my examination grades. But again, I'm doing well. I'll be taking board exams as a future physician. I'll be taking examinations for the rest of my life. So that's why it's really important to find a strategy that works for you and be adaptable to it. So I want to hear your thoughts. I want to hear what's worked for you in the past. How have you changed? If you have any tips for me, maybe you use RimNote and you have some tips that I can take to implement to improve what I'm doing already with that. I'd love to hear it. And until the next time, I hope you're well, okay? Be well.